Alright, so I know normally I do composites type videos, but I've been getting quite a few questions recently about how to solder various connectors that we use in our UAVs. And so I'm going to go ahead and cover how to solder these things. I'm going to cover 3 different connectors today. There is the Anderson power pole connector, which is a genderless plug, but it is keyed, so you can't plug it in backwards, which is good. There is the Futaba J connector, which is mainly used for servos. It's also gendered and it's also keyed. And then we have the standard Dean's Ultra connector, which is used mainly for high current applications like batteries. And it is a keyed and gendered connector. So we're going to start with the Dean's connector. I'm going to show you how to do everything from cutting the wire to shrink wrapping the final product. Alright, so first off, let's take a look at the markings on a Dean's connector. This is the side that we're going to be soldering the wires to. You can see here on this side there's a negative, which I marked black just so we could see easier in the video. And on this side we've got a positive. Now that's the standard polarity for a Dean's connector, and there's really no reason to not follow this because that's what everybody uses, and you don't want to go screwing somebody up by making a charging lead that's opposite that and have them blow up their battery. So with that, we are going to go ahead and start by stripping the appropriate amount of wire off of these black and red 16 gauge wires. Now you can use, I've used up to like 10 gauge wire on Dean's connectors, which starts to be kind of large for the spacing of these contacts on here, but we're just going to go with 16 gauge for this demo. So we want to strip off no more than not much more than the length of these little soldering tips on here. So go ahead and just eyeball that. Need about that much off of the red one, and then the same off of the black one. I'll go ahead and twist the ends on these just so the wires aren't frayed everywhere. And we'll set these aside for now. We'll tin them later. Now, one little helpful hint here is I use a pair of vice grips to hold the Dean's connector while soldering it. Makes it a little easier to handle, mainly because then your hands don't get burnt. So we go ahead and lock those in the vice grips. Set these over here. And we're going to go ahead and tin the leads on this. Alright, so now this is an important step because it'll help with the solder flowing when we go to attach the tinned wires. So we'll go ahead and just tin this side, this connector, and go until the solder just starts to soak in. Just like that. Got a nice little bubble going there. And now, if the wire gauge is small enough, I like to go on the inside of this other one. It makes for a much cleaner looking connection. But if the wire is too small, or rather too large, then it's okay to go on the other side of the connector too. It's not really that big a deal. Alright, so we got those tinned. Set that aside. Now, we have to tin these wires. And I like to just go ahead and set the soldering iron down and not hold it, since I've only got 2 hands here. Take your wire, and you go ahead and be nice and generous with the solder until it kind of starts soaking through the top. So that'll be good for that one. Now to get the black one. This would be a lot quicker if we had a higher power soldering iron, so you may consider that before making your own Dean's connectors, but it's not really that big a deal. Oh, that's way too much on that. Alright, so now that we have everything tinned, it's time to go ahead and solder the wires onto the Dean's connector. So I like to use a pair of vice grips here to hold the Dean's connector in place while soldering the wires on there so you don't burn your fingers. So we're going to go ahead and start with the black wire. Now what we're going to do is we're going to first tin the tip of the soldering iron, and then melt the pool on the connector, introduce the wire, and you want both the pools to melt nice and together here. And then you want them to go ahead and dry. Alright. Now, we're going to go ahead and flip this connector. This might be a little bit more difficult to show here. I'll try and see what I can do though. Now if this was a battery, we'd want to be more careful and make sure the shrink wrap is connected on here before we go to connect this. Otherwise we're looking to short the battery out, and we don't want that. So again, we'll go ahead and tip the soldering, or tin the tip of the soldering iron. Get the pool on the connector melted. Introduce the wire to it. The pool's nice and melted together. Let it cool. And we have ourselves a fully soldered jeans connector. Now, all we have to do is shrink wrap the ends. So, start with the back side of the wire here and put the shrink wrap on. And where'd my other piece of shrink wrap go? Fell on the ground. Put on the red one. It's cool enough now we can take it out of the vice grips. All we do is we take our monocoat iron, or use a lighter or whatever, to just go ahead, shrink those down, and you want to keep pressure on these things so they don't peel away from your connector. And that's it. That's all there is to it.